Okay, so let's imagine for a second we're in the Supreme Court of India.
Right?
It's Tuesday, April 8th, 2025.
Gotcha.
And there's like this palpable tension in the air
Oh, I bet.
because this was the day a really big legal battle went down in Tamil Nadu.
Huh. Spicy.
Yeah, it involved the governor, and the whole thing kind of sent shockwaves across the country.
So what exactly happened?
Well, to put it simply, the Supreme Court basically put their foot down
Okay.
with the governor over 10 bills
10 bills. Wow.
that were just stuck waiting for his approval.
And Supreme Court wasn't too happy about that?
Not at all. They
No.
basically said his decision to pass the buck to the president was a big no-no.
Illegal and erroneous were the words they used, right?
Exactly. They didn't mince words. It was a pretty huge rebuke.
So that's what we're diving deep into today.
We're going to try and unpack this whole ruling and figure out what it all means
Sounds good. I'm all ears.
without getting too bogged down in legal jargon, of course.
Right, because not all of us have law degrees.
Exactly. So the main players here are Justices Pardiwala and Mahadevan. They were on the bench for this one.
Okay.
And then, of course, you have the governor of Tamil Nadu, Dr. R.N. Ravi.
All right, high stakes stuff.
Definitely, this is a case with some serious implications.
So let's rewind a bit. What was the deal with these 10 bills?
Right, so the Tamil Nadu State Assembly did their thing.
Okay.
They passed these bills, sent them over to the governor for his signature.
Standard procedure.
Exactly.
Right.
But instead of giving the thumbs up or thumbs down,
Or, doing something else constitutionally sound.
he basically just sat on them,
Really just ignored them
pretty much. And then all of a sudden, he decides to forward them to the president.
out of the blue.
Yep, that was the move that set off the Supreme Court.
So this is where Article 200 of the Constitution comes in.
Exactly. That's the rule book for what a governor is supposed to do in this situation.
It outlines the responsibilities when dealing with bills from the state legislature.
Right. And the Supreme Court made it crystal clear that the governor stepped outside those boundaries.
And they didn't just say, hey, you messed up.
Oh, they went further than that.
What'd they do?
They basically said his actions and anything the president might have done based on them were null and void.
Like hitting the delete button.
Exactly. As if none of it ever happened.
So non-external, right? That was the legal term they used.
You got it, and that's a pretty strong statement.
It implies the governor's actions were invalid from the get-go.
Absolutely. This wasn't just a minor slip-up.
This was a fundamental overreach of his power.
And to really drive the point home, the Supreme Court laid down some specific timelines.
Ah, so now there's a ticking clock.
You could say that they basically said no more stalling, no more indefinite delays.
Which makes sense because the Tamil Nadu government was feeling pretty frustrated.
Oh, absolutely. They felt like they were being stonewalled.
Imagine you're trying to pass laws that you think are super important for your state,
Yeah.
and they just get stuck in limbo.
And these weren't small potatoes either.
What kind of bills are we talking about?
Well, for example, one bill dealt with appointing vice chancellors for universities.
Big deal. Who gets to lead those institutions?
Another one involved the head of the Tamil Nadu Public Service Commission.
So key positions that impact how the state runs.
Right, and get this, one of the bills actually aimed to remove the governor himself from being the chancellor of universities.
Oh, wow, that's got to sting a little bit.
You think so? The governor basically argued that he just wasn't comfortable making a decision.
On any of them.
Yeah, and he thought it was better to just punt it to the president.
Sort of a, I don't want to deal with this move.
Exactly. It's a classic pocket veto.
Not outright rejecting it, but effectively killing it with inaction.
And the Supreme Court was having none of it.
They basically called him out for trying to dodge his responsibilities.
They said, you got to engage with these bills. You can't just pass the buck.
And they stressed that he should have talked to the Tamil Nadu government directly about any concerns he had.
Like, imagine you find a typo in a report at work.
Yeah.
You'd probably tell the person who wrote it, right?
Of course, so they can fix it.
Exactly. You wouldn't just send it straight to the CEO without saying anything.
Makes sense. Good analogy.
Now, here's another twist. The president did respond to the bills initially.
Okay.
He sent them back saying they clash with national laws.
Conflicting with federal law, that's a big deal.
It is. But the Supreme Court basically said, well, if the governor had those concerns,
Should have brought them up earlier.
exactly, you should have addressed them with the state government right from the start.
So the attorney general jumped in too, right?
He did. He tried to argue that the president's refusal was final.
End of story, case closed.
Yeah, he even called it a political thicket.
Hey, sounds intense.
But the Supreme Court wasn't buying it. They stuck to their guns and said, no, Article 200 is pretty clear on this.
So they laid down the law, so to speak.
They set some very specific deadlines for how governors need to handle bills.
Let's hear them.
Okay, so first, They have 1 month to send a bill to the president, but only if the Council of Ministers agrees.
So no solo missions.
Nope. Then, if the governor wants to send a bill back to the assembly for reconsideration.
Without the council's advice.
Right, they've got 3 months to do that.
Okay.
And finally, if the assembly sends the bill back after making changes,
The governor has
1 month to give their assent.
no more dragging things out.
Exactly. The clock is ticking, and this ruling has implications far beyond Tamil Nadu.
Right. This sets a precedent for all governors across India.
It significantly limits their ability to obstruct state laws.
It really reinforces the idea that state legislatures have the right to govern without undue interference.
And specifically for Tamil Nadu, those 10 bills are considered good to go.
The moment they're back on the governor's desk.
Exactly. No more waiting. It's a big win for the state government.
And this whole situation really highlights the tension between the Tamil Nadu government and Governor Ravi.
For sure, the state government has accused him of deliberately causing delays.
Sitting on files, they called it?
Yep. And the governor, in turn, has been flexing his powers under Article 200.
Leading to this whole constitutional showdown.
Which brings us to the main takeaway from our deep dive today.
Hit me with it.
The Supreme Court made it abundantly clear that governors can't just ignore bills passed by state assemblies.
They have a responsibility to act, and they have to do it within specific timeframes.
And there are consequences if they don't.
This is a huge deal for Indian federalism.
It really clarifies the balance of power between the states and the governors.
And it raises some important questions about the governor's role.
Like, is it meant to be a check on state power? Or is it potentially a tool for obstruction?
Things to ponder, for sure.
Absolutely. And with that, we've reached the end of our deep dive.
I learned a lot.
Me too. It's a fascinating stuff.
Until next time.
Keep those questions coming and keep exploring.